The Phantom of Opera isn't just another ghost story. The Phantom really existed, secretly roaming the grand halls of the Paris Opera House. The air in the opera house was humming with excitement. It was the first night under new management. Voices were warming up with high drills. The star of the show, Carlotta, stomped around complaining. How can I be expected to sing? She wailed when my throat hurts from all the smoke in this horrible city. Down the corridor from Carlotta, dancers fussed and fiddled with their costumes. But in one dressing room, the evening performance was the last thing anyone was thinking about. I heard the ghost has different heads that he changes as he pleases, said one of the dancers. You are all wrong, said a third dancer smugly. I have seen the phantom with my very own eyes. The others turned to stare at her. He has one head, and you could mistake him for a gentleman in a long black cloak and a fine hat. But I don't know about his nose because his face was covered with a mask. The dancer paused dramatically. They say the phantom's face is so horrific and frightening it would make a grown man weep. Enough of that nonsense, interrupted Madame G, who was in charge of the show. We have a crisis. Carlotta is refusing to sing. The girls began to whisper among themselves. They dragged a shy girl named Christine over Madame G. Christine can do it. But she doesn't know the part, cried Madame. I do, said Christine softly. I sing it every night after the show. Madame looked her up and down and sighed. What choice do I have? Well, get into the costume. The audience waited eagerly in their red velvet seats. They gazed up at a huge glass chandelier suspended from the painted ceiling. Their voices filled the air like a chorus of angels, and their bright costumes glittered as they danced. When Christine walked on, the stage became dark and silent. A single light shone on her. She opened her mouth and sang from her heart. It was the sweetest and the most beautiful sound. When she finished, there was a silence for a moment before loud applause erupted. The noise rang dizzily in Christine's ears and she fainted. The audience watched in silence as Christine's limp body was picked up and carried off stage. She was placed in a chair in her dressing room. Madame G thrust smelling salts under her nose and she blinked open her eyes. My dear, you were magnificent, said Madame G, fanning her with a handkerchief. And you have a visitor. He is a count, she whispered excitedly before rushing out. A handsome young man came into the room. Count, do excuse me, Christine said, trying to stand up. No, please rest, said the Count. You had quite a turn. I just came to say, he went on, I am a huge fan of opera and I thought you were wonderful. You should sing every night. Christine blushed. I was just standing in for Carlotta. You are a million times better than her, he declared. Anyway, I would go good night. The Count shut the door behind him and leaned against it for a moment. He could hear a deep male voice coming from the room. But there was no one else in there, he mumbled. He had his ear to the door when a couple of dancers came by, so he walked away quickly. What is the meaning of this? The new manager of the opera house waved a piece of paper at Madame G. I demand the sum of 20 francs per month. Carlotta sings like a toad. I want to hear Christine sing every night or else. It is the phantom, she said nervously. I tell the girls he isn't real. But the truth is, I have worked here for 20 years and we have always given in to him. She shuddered. If we don't, he will make a big trouble. Phantom, you mean a ghost? Said the manager. If some crook who skulls around my opera house thinks he can swindle money out of me, he's got another thing coming. Suddenly, the door swung open and a stage hand burst in. It's Pico, he has been taken. Pico was the manager's beloved pet dog. My little Pico, what how? Spluttered the manager. I heard Pico barking and I saw a man in a cloak in the shadows. Madam G shivered. It's the phantom. Mark my words, manager. Pay up quickly or something dreadful will happen. The Count was hovering by Christine's dressing room. He had heard about the phantom and was worried about her, especially after hearing strange voice in her room the week before. Count, the Christine almost walked into him as she came out. She looked around nervously and blocked his view into her room. Can I help you? She asked with a bright smile. I just wanted to make sure you were all right after fainting last week. He paused as he heard the same deep voice coming from her room. Who's that? Oh, no one, Christine said. I'm fine, thank you, but I must dash, and she shut the door in his face. The Count was more puzzled than ever, so he hid behind some costumes and decided to wait. After a few minutes, Christine came out dressed in a hooded cloak. She rushed down the corridor and out of the opera house. The Count followed her along dark, lamplit streets until they reached a small, gloomy graveyard. The moonlight cast creepy shadows on the ancient stone graves. The Count watched as Christine knelt by a grave. The church bells began to chime midnight. Sad violin music floated on the air. Christine swayed and sang along to the music as if in a trance. The Count was captivated until he felt a hand on his shoulder that chilled him to the bone. He looked into a pair of blood red eyes and let out a scream. The eyes so red, the Count spluttered. As he spoke, the figure vanished. Count, what eyes? What are you talking about? Asked Christine, running over to him. And the violin? Did you hear the violin? Said the Count, dazed. Christine looked afraid. Yes, I did. But I don't know who's playing. I came here to sing at my father's grave. Before he died, he told me an angel of music would visit me. And has one? The Count opened his eyes wide. He comes to the opera house, she said. He taught me everything I know about singing, but I've never seen him. So the voice I heard, yes, that was him. He says I will be the most famous singer in Paris. Will you keep it a secret? The Count looked serious. If you want me to, he said. Now let me walk you back. It's late. The next morning was bright and sunny. Carlotta was lying in bed eating chocolate truffles when her maid came in with a letter. What's this? Carlotta demanded, her mouth full of chocolate. If you appear on stage tonight, you must be prepared for a misfortune worse than death. It's a threat. Someone is telling me not to sing. How dare they? Get my things. I'm going straight to the manager. In less than an hour, Carlotta was in manager's office. He read it quickly and went pale. It's the phantom, he muttered. Phantom? Carlotta's ears pricked up. I am not afraid of the ghost. I will sing tonight. That night, whole cast felt uneasy, but Carlotta wasn't in the least worried. Phantom, she declared. She fluffed her up her costume and marched on stage. Carlotta lifted up her arms and opened her mouth wide, but all that came out was a loud, harsh croak. The audience gasped. Carlotta continued to croak like a toad, and the audience began to laugh. The manager, who was looking on in disbelief, heard a chilling voice in his ear. Carlotta sings tonight to bring the house down. I beg your pardon. The manager spun around, but the figure behind him had gone. At that moment, a deafening crack shook the hall. Everyone looked up. The glass chandelier which sparkled over the audience was coming loose. Plaster fell from the ceiling in great chunks, and huge lights swung dangerously. The audience began to scream and run from their seats. The singers on stage watched horrified. With an almighty crash, the chandelier fell, narrowing, missing Carlotta. Then all of the lights went out with a terrifying ghoulish laugh echoed around the opera house. Backstage, Christine stared at the madness in terror as she watched a black cloak whirled around her and she was swept away. She tried to scream for help, but her cries were muffled beneath the cloak. Blindly, she stumbled down a flight of stairs and along a maze of twisty paths. The air around her became colder and damper as she struggled to get free. Finally, her captor released his grip. She opened her eyes and blinked. Underneath the opera house was another world. She saw a misty lake with stony tunnels leading off in different directions. Huge candles flickered and wax dripped down the dark tank walls. Don't be afraid, Christine. You, Christine gasped, spinning around, my angel of music. But she wasn't. But he wasn't what she had imagined. She came face to face with a man in a mask. It was the Phantom of Opera. She took a step back, afraid. Don't be scared, I'm your friend. He took her shaking hand and led her onto a boat which sat on a mysterious lake. The boat began to float away. Christine couldn't help but be enchanted. I am the voice you hear, but I am no angel. He turned his masked face towards the shadows. You have been so kind to me. She paused. Why do you hide down here? It's safe, no one can laugh at my face, said the phantom sadly. It can't be that bad. Will you show me? Christine asked gently. No, shouted the phantom. Of all the people, I don't want to show you. But you are my friend. I wouldn't turn my back on you, she insisted. No, Christine, he said firmly. They sailed on in silence. Did you make the chandelier fall tonight? She asked. Enough of your questions. He roared so loudly that Christine trembled. I would better take you back, he said. With a sweep of his cloak, the boat changed direction. The next day, the manager sat in his office with Madame G. We must get this phantom. Little Pico is gone, Carlotta has left us, the opera house is falling apart. All is not lost. Don't forget we have Christine, said Madame G. The manager scratched his chin. You are right, there's something magical about her. Draw up a contract, Carlotta's part is hers. That afternoon, posters went up all around Paris advertising the new star of the show. Before the show, Christine nervously paced her dressing room. It was one thing to do single performance at the last minute, but quite another to be the leading lady forever. But Christine was a born star. By the end of the show, she felt as if she had played the part all her life. The show was almost over when orchestra abruptly stopped playing. The chorus stopped singing and the dancers stopped dancing. The audience shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Even the temperature seemed to drop. The only person who didn't stop was Christine. She continued to sing with a crackle. The lights flashed and stage went dark. Christine let out a scream that sent shivers down everyone's spine. The lights flared back on, lighting the stage. A trapdoor was open and Christine had vanished. Christine shouted the count from his seat in the front row. The phantom must have taken her, he yelled. Through that trapdoor, follow me. The manager, Madame G, jumped up from their seats and ran after the count. The three of them disappeared under the opera house into the phantom's secret world. They ran down the twisting tunnels until they reached the lake. There she is, the count pointed to Christine, who was in the boat with the phantom. Mist floated around them. Give her back, you beast. No, snarled the phantom. She is mine now. Keep away. It's for the best, count, Christine sobbed. The phantom turned to Christine. I only wanted to be happy with a wife and a family. But you can, Christine insisted. Who could love me? Let her go, shouted the count. Don't worry, Christine, I am coming over. He began to wade into the lake. Get back, warned the phantom. He flicked his cloak and the water around the boat blazed into flame. Leave him alone and I will stay with you. She reached up and kissed the phantom's cheek where it wasn't hidden by the mask. I told you I'm your friend, said Christine, but you frightened me. I'm so sorry, he sobbed. I was just so lonely. Christine put a hand on his shoulder. They could hear the police whistles in a distance. I must go, the phantom said, but Christine began and paused in a shock. He had vanished. All that was left in the boat was Phantom's mask. The boat floated to the shore. Christine cried the count, helping her out. You are safe now. They watched as the empty boat floated into the mist. The manager, Madame G, and the police looked around in bewilderment. Christine clutched the mask in her hands. Goodbye, my angel of music.